I'm sorry I was holding up this recording. I was just tweeting out because I have a very important question.
Oh.
And I just tweeted out, I need my challenge 34 people to figure something out for me. I feel as if I'm more on Team Jordan than Team Turbo or Team Polly. Is that weird? Anyways, about to record You Killed It with my friend, John Chidley Hill. Tune in. I feel weird, man. I feel weird. That's how I'm going to start this podcast. I feel weird.
Well, I was going to start the podcast by asking you how that NBA championship ring felt.
Ooh.
But
Yo, that was heavy. That was heavy in the streets. That thing. And so it was what John's referencing is, if you follow me on social media, which, of course, if you're listening to this podcast, you better follow us on social media, I'd assume. Why not, right? Get our hot takes in between each pod. But we had the ring makers come by my workplace yesterday, and the championship rings, because obviously the Toronto Raptors are the world champions. So the ring makers were by, and they had a replica of the ring, like the actual, like, Kyle Lowry championship ring, a replica of it, not the Kyle Lowry's actual one, but the exact same one. Just, yeah. So I have pictures on my social media accounts with the ring, and let me tell you, that shit is legit. That's all I'll say. That shit is heavy. That, like, weighed down my fist.
I needed to start the podcast with that. It's too good not to talk about.
And I just ruined it. I'm sorry. I just ruined the opening. I'm sorry. I apologize.
I still love it. It's still going to work. It's organic. It's real. I'm John Chidley Hill.
And I am, once again, Sheldon Alexander.
And this is You Killed It, the podcast about the challenge. You asked an interesting question right off the top with your tweet there about being Team Jordan versus Team Turbo versus Team Polly. But first, we got to talk about how we're going to get there. So let's start from the top.
Let's do it.
After last week's elimination, where Theo and Georgia come out triumphant over Kyle and Esther. I was going to say, I've already forgotten her name.
Poor Esther.
They call a team meeting, and Theo makes the very fair point that they need to start winning, and that Joss and Rogan need to start putting the UK first ahead of Polly and Kara's agenda. And it was so funny. Like, I agreed with everything Theo said, but it was so funny looking at people's faces, like their reactions, because you could tell that Kaylee, Rogan, and Joss were just like being like, I'm just going to let him talk and then do whatever the fuck I want.
The funny part to me, and you mentioned Kaylee, that's the funniest part about that conversation to me, because, like, Kaylee, what other option does she have, right? And it's clearly her best option because it's working for her, because she hasn't really said shit. She hasn't really done shit. And yet her mouth isn't even, like, her name's not even on the chopping block at all. Like, her name barely even comes up in terms of being in trouble. So it's kind of funny, you know, to put yourself in her shoes in that situation where you're listening to that speech and it's like, well, what else would she do? Why would she think about doing something else?
Yeah. It's the problem for Theo is that this is working for everyone on his team,
but his allies and Georgia.
Yeah, it's not working for him. It's not working for Georgia. In the long run, it's not going to work for Jenny. But, like, to your point, like, I don't even understand why people would want to keep Kaylee.
Yeah,
like, there's Georgia and Jenny are both better competitors, and
it's not close.
No, it's not close. She is now the worst female competitor on the British team, wouldn't you say?
For sure.
Kaylee, that is?
But my thing is, too, like, it's not even close, right? Like, you could at least have an argument between, you know, Kara, Cam, Tori. Like, they're at least, I want to say, in the same weight class. And what I mean by, like, you know what I'm saying when I say that. I don't mean actual. They're in the same division. They're in the same conference, let's say, right?
There you go.
And, you know, nobody thinks Kaylee would come close against, like, anyone. She might be the worst female competitor left in the game, no?
Yeah, I'd say so.
So
I think that's fair.
it's just a weird thing, but also showing the reason why we love the show at the same time, because there's multiple ways to get by in this game. So, hey, can't knock her. Can't knock her too much.
Then the next morning, Kara and Tori decide to wrestle with Turbo and Paulie and Jordan watching on, and they kept doing this slow-mo that made me think that one of them was going to get hurt. Like, that's where I thought that scene was going. And then Jordan and Paulie wrestle too.
Mm-hmm.
And Kara sort of describes her relationship with Jordan in that it's non-existent. And she talks about how he's always been able to get under her skin. And both Paulie and Jordan confirm that Jordan and Kara dislike each other a great deal.
Do we remember what that stems from at all? Like, I have a terrible memory, but is there like a defining moment from a past season off the top of your head?
No, I think it's just their personalities, specifically Jordan's personality. Like, I think Jordan is just a abrasive person, which is funny because I gather Kara is also an abrasive person, right? Like, if you think of the number of people that dislike Kara, like, it's like she's got to take some of the blame too.
Yeah.
But it's like, I see why Jordan rubs people the wrong way, but like, I can also see how they're just both naturally frustrating people to deal with.
Very difficult personalities to deal with for sure. And you could see why they would butt heads, because they're so much alike in certain ways, right? Like, always feeling as if they have something to prove, always feeling like they're kind of slighted, but take it in different ways. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, they both always they come off as they're angry because they're being slighted, but Kara and Jordan both go about it in different ways. Jordan's going to use bravado and like brag on it, whereas Kara sometimes will like cower and like cry about it. Do you know what I mean? But they're both dealing with the same issue.
Yeah, I also think that, I mean, you touch on it. They're both very passive-aggressive people.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Rather than, like, aggressive people, which is what we'll see later. But, like...
who could you be talking about?
The Johnny Bananas of this world, like, you know when you have a problem with him.
Yeah. But the thing I found funny, too, was Kara says that she thinks Jordan and Tori are jealous and they want to be the Paulie and Kara power couple in the house. Do you see Jordan and Tori as being like that?
I don't quite see them as being on the same level in terms of, like, being a power couple.
Yeah.
And to me, it's mainly, like, you just said that they're in the same division, but I haven't really seen Tori compete to Kara's level yet. Like, Tori's never won a challenge, like, an entire season.
That's fair.
I mean, the flip side of that is Paulie's never won an entire season, whereas Jordan has.
Yeah. But the thing, too, is I think that Paulie and Kara are definitely, like, they view themselves, like, they would be the ones to say something like, oh, we're the power couple, we're the challenges, like, you know, we're the face of the challenge, you know, like, they would say things like that. But they also do things in the show that go beyond just the athletic merits of the show, if that makes sense. So
yeah,
they're so much more focused on just being in the drama, stirring the pot. Yeah, they're concerned with winning challenges and trying to win the game, but to them, there's so much more to it, right? Whether they can create drama or fake fights or stirring the pot or whatever, where I think Tori and Jordan are more focused on, if we're the couple of the challenge or whatever, we want to do that by winning. Like, we want to win challenges. We want to be known as great competitors. The drama side of it, I think, is more Jordan's just bravado and Tori trying to rein that in. I don't know. That's how I read it. But I found that a weird comment from Kara because I didn't really view the two couples as being the same or having the same mentality.
The same. Definitely not. Another big part of how they're different is that when they're not on the show, Kara and Paulie are still about the show.
and still in the drama. Yeah, totally true.
They're
Good point.
They're, faking breaking up and getting back together. They are hanging out with other people from the show. They are maybe trolling people about psychological tests. I don't know if you heard about that. That's a whole nother thing.
To be honest, when they're not on the show, I tune them out. And when they are on the show, I still almost tune them out if we're being serious. If I'm being totally honest here, John.
Well, that's fair. Speaking of Tori, though, she's doing laps around the pool. She's running laps around the pool, I guess, after the wrestling match. And as she's running, Dee is also running and really focused on trying to keep pace with Tori.
Yeah.
And this sort of plays out where that shortly after she's doing like 15 burpees after running, and they are in Thailand, which is not, a cool country. Georgia finds Dee in the bathroom suffering from heat stroke.
Yeah.
Georgia, Nani, Ninja, medics, and producers are attending to Dee as she's vomited all over herself. She's struggling to breathe. She's definitely in a panic too. Like, she's clearly scared.
Yeah, she looked out of it. Like, she was on the ground, and the noises she was making were super weird, and it did seem to be a lot. One thing I wanted to ask you, John, have you ever had heat stroke before?
Yes, I am a translucent Canadian.
A translucent Canadian. Can you elaborate on that for our American brethren?
Sure. I am so pasty. True facts about your boy John.
Oh,
I wear sunscreen year round, including in the dead of winter.
What? That's a real thing.
That's a real thing. I have to. I will get sunburnt otherwise, even like in January.
Wow.
If I'm in like a tropical region, I can get sunburned in the shade.
That is incredible. I'm learning so much right now. I'm so glad I asked that question. Holy shit.
So yes, I have definitely had heat stroke. Not often, because like I know my vulnerabilities. So I don't expose this. And like, I feel very bad for Dee in this moment. But I'm going to say something that's probably mean.
Oh, geez.
How does an Australian get heat stroke? Like, how does she not know how to handle the sun? That's like a Canadian getting, like, hypothermia. Like, you should know better.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was more so kind of how you started out this, right? Just emphasizing the fact that she's trying to keep up with Tori, right? And that's how she's, she's focused on that way more than, she's focused on pushing herself far more than she's worried about dealing with the heat, or because they said she was just dehydrated, right? Like, didn't have enough water. But I just think her focus is so much more on trying to keep up, trying not to be the weak link, that, like you lose your focus, literally.
And Ninja made the point that she thinks the game is getting to Dee so bad that she's hurting herself mentally and physically. I have to say, that has the ring of truth.
Yeah.
Because not only is Dee stressed out about winning the money and competing well, and to your point, not being the weakest link, but she's also really worried, like has ongoing concerns about her relationship with Rogan, in that she's worried about how they're going to make it work long distance. I think it's pretty obvious that she likes him more than he likes her. Yeah. And on some level, she knows that. I mean, I think we've all been there where you like someone more than they like you, and like, not that they're leading you on, but you're aware of that imbalance, and it just makes you white knuckle more. You know what I mean? It makes you squeeze the fish too tight.
Yeah, and there's also the side of this that's super weird, right? Like, you're in this house with, I wrote down cyborgs, right? You're in the house with all these different cyborgs that are in like peak physical condition, and that's got to be super intimidating, right? For anyone else to be in that house, if you consider yourself to be in some type of good shape, but then you're in the house with all these people who are like physical specimens, right? Like that's got to be emotionally tough to deal with as well as physically tough to deal with. So it's a weird thing. And I mean, Tori, when they're talking about it after, Tori said what? She did 25 burpees after that long run, and that's like a really difficult thing to do after a long workout in the heat again. And, you know, here I am. I asked you if you've ever had heat stroke, and I think I had heat stroke once in my life, and that was from like one like 40-degree day at Carabana. Right? So I can't compare. You know what I'm saying?
Have you ever done burpees?
Yes. Yeah.
I hate burpees because I've been concussed so much that the jumping is really hard. Like it literally gives me a headache almost instantly if I do one burpee.
Yeah.
And like, who knows what Dee's medical history is, but like if you do have concussions, like or a history of brain injuries, brain trauma, that's not going to help things either. Like it's burpees are, I mean, they're an effective exercise, but they're probably the worst exercise, all things considered. One thing that Dee mentioned in confessional is that she quit her job to be on this season.
Yeah.
So like that's an additional like factor of stress. Like if she loses, not that she's fucked, but like it's there's going to be some like income stresses, you know? Like she's going to like head back to I guess Australia jobless, not knowing about her situation with Rogan, and you know, like the stakes are high for Dee. I think the stakes are high for a lot of people on this show, but you know, it's pretty bad. Yeah. I understand. And then we have to talk about, so someone goes and gets Rogan. I forget who. Nani, I think, went and got Rogan. What did you think of Rogan's reaction to this situation?
First, I don't think Rogan knows what heat stroke is. Like, I didn't think he understood. Like,
yeah,
and I don't remember.
That's a fair point.
I don't remember if it was actually brought up as, "Hey, she has heat stroke," or if they used another term. But clear, like, either way, it was very apparent what they said, and I don't think it registered in Rogan's brain what that meant or what was going on. And yeah, it did seem kind of odd, right? Like, and I don't know, maybe it was just a weird edit. I don't know if it's just kind of to drop the little sprinkles in our head that, you know, he didn't come off as he like genuinely cared. Like it seemed like he had kind of a nonchalant response to it, or not as, maybe not nonchalant, maybe that's the wrong term, but it didn't seem that he was as worried as maybe he should be if you're seeing your significant other on the floor getting medical attention and being carried off in a stretcher to the hospital.
Yes, he seemed much less concerned than Ninja did. Mm-hmm. And there was a moment where, like, the ambulance is pulling away, and Ninja was standing both closer to the ambulance and also like genuinely seemed more concerned. You know what I mean? Like they had sort of a two-shot.
Yeah. And
it was there's a big contrast between Rogan and Ninja's reactions. And totally in a confessional, Jenny says that she thinks that this is a sign of weakness of Dee. Like, how is Dee going to run a final if this is, like, if she's struggling with running around the pool at her own pace?
Which is a very valid point, I think. It's a very valid point. But it also leads to the stress of it. Dee knows that, too. That's why at one point Ninja mentions, don't worry, nobody else is around. Like, don't even worry about that. No one else is seeing this right now.
Yeah, because people are great at keeping secrets in the challenge house. Like, that's definitely not something that everyone's going to talk about when you spend the night in the hospital.
Yes, but you got to keep those electrolytes up, right? Isn't that the lesson we got from, what's my guy from Entourage? Vinny Chase's brother?
I don't know. I
Oh,
have
you
never
never watched
watched Entourage.
You're not missing much, but
Yeah.
there's one whole episode where like he just starts crushing Gatorades because he's got to keep his electrolytes up. Anyways, sorry.
Well, Dee got her electrolytes up, and she's back in time for the competition. She did look a little worse for wear. Like,
Yeah.
she definitely had, like, I will say, like, heat stroke is not a one-day event. Like, you feel it for a couple of days. Or at least
Correct.
I feel it for a couple of days.
Yeah.
But she's there for the competition. TJ welcomes her back because, you know, he's excited for her to not quit.
And what do you think of this competition being called Under Siege? Because for me, that just makes me think of the Steven Seagal movie.
I mean, I hope that's what they were referencing. I also have to say, on the challenge's Instagram page, I don't know if they fixed it, but they misspelled siege.
Oh, okay.
And I actually, because I'm a dick, I commented with a correction.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they actually listened to me. But they misspelled
And you're also
siege
professionally a writer.
That's true.
Like,
But it
I
bothered
think that
me.
probably has more to do with it than you being a dick. Like, you're also professionally a writer. So that probably hits you a little differently.
I guess so. It did rub me the wrong way, and I couldn't leave it be.
But this challenge, what do you think of this challenge, man? So basically there's a huge ass shipping container, and
Yes.
there's a puzzle on either side. But you have to basically switch sides, get the puzzle pieces, get back to your side, and complete the puzzle that's on the wall while this huge shipping container is moving and tipping side to side. And there's huge yoga balls in there, and you got to keep your balance, and you're split up between the guys and the girls, and you're in there at the same time. So there's not a lot of room for maneuvering. And to be honest, this looked really cool. What do you think of this challenge?
I really liked it. I mean, the way the men looked when they exited, and we should say, it was done in two heats. Mm-hmm. Originally supposed to be two heats, a men's heat and a woman's heat. I thought the men's heat was exactly what the producers were hoping for in terms of physicality, people losing their tempers, people hitting each other, banging into each other. As Jordan says at one point, you know, you've got 200-pound guys that are sliding down because they slicked the floor too.
Yep, of course.
Just crashing into you. And, you know, I mean, this sort of is foreshadowing, but Turbo gets a little riled up because, you know, he almost breaks his legs, in his words.
Yeah.
And Joss later throws one of the yoga balls at him and hits him in the face. But even if you're trying not to run into people, you're going to.
Yeah, it was such a weird thing. What do you think of Turbo getting mad? Because I was kind of like, dude, seriously? You're mad about that? Like, this is a game, and the whole point of the balls being there is to use them as a distraction for you, to throw you off because they're trying to win. You know why? Because they've lost like 85 times in a row. So if they can get some kind of advantage by throwing this ball at you and slowing you down or distracting you, throwing you off your game, why shouldn't they do that? And why wouldn't you be able to understand that as a competitor? You're playing a game.
Yep.
I'm definitely not on Team Turbo. I guess that's part of my answer to my own question there. But yeah, it's just so weird. Like, shut up, dude.
Yeah. This does look fucking rough. And also, being in a shipping container in that heat would also be brutal. Right?
Yeah. They look like they got out of a sauna once they got out, no?
Yeah, they did. And I don't really know like what shortcuts there are to this aside from doing what they did, which is like slide back and forth when you can be close. Like at one point I wondered if it'd be worthwhile. You obviously saw that they had high windows, and I wondered if like it'd be worth one of the taller guys like grabbing on and holding on, but that would only save you a few seconds in terms of like getting back to the puzzle. Like it wouldn't.
I feel like at one point we saw Zach do that. No.
Yeah, I think
so. But yeah, overall, it seemed to be difficult. And this was a thing where overall strategy might have just been your best bet to communicate really well and delegate someone's actual job to being just putting the pieces on the board. Yeah. And other people, hey, you guys go get the puzzle pieces. And, you know, like delegate it that way. And we didn't really see much of that. It kind of more seemed like a free-for-all. Although CT said that, what's his name? First off, he said Idris just looked lost. Didn't even know where Idris was.
And in fairness, they showed footage of Idris standing in the middle of the shipping container, looking pretty out of it.
It said that Theo was being like Vanna White, just standing beside the wall and displaying the puzzle pieces, but not actually doing anything. I thought that was kind of funny. But the guys couldn't get it done on their first attempt. And when they come out, the girls go in for their turn. And I thought the guys, you know, I thought the girls would probably do a better job because they would have the benefit of speaking to the guys and having the guys tell them, hey, well, maybe try this instead, or this worked for us, this didn't work. But that didn't really appear to happen. Like, I guess the guys tried, but obviously that didn't work either because the girls didn't do too well either.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, maybe we didn't hear all the conversations, but there were, like, guides to how to do the puzzles. Mm-hmm. And it took the guys a while to, like, cotton on to the fact that there was, like, an answer key. And I never heard the guy say, oh, by the way, on the side of the wall, there's an answer key. Like, check that out. Because later on, when the women are in there, at one point, I want to say it's Tori says, hey, guys, look at the answer key. Like, and it sounded like she was discovering it. Okay. Maybe I could be off base. Like, we definitely didn't see all the, like, conversations when they were resetting the challenge. Yeah. But I definitely had the sense that not everything was communicated. And in fairness, it's hard to like communicate how to solve a puzzle. Yeah. Or like give a strategy, especially when you can't see it. But
and normally one of the tricks that people use to solve puzzles on the show is they'll build it on the ground and then put it up on the wall. But you couldn't do that in this case because obviously the ground kept moving and shifting, and so that made it extra difficult as well. But I did find it funny, the contrast is you alluded to earlier, but the guys and girls, like the girls were super polite. And there's a bunch of, oh, I'm so sorry. Sorry, I didn't mean to bump you. Sorry, did I run it? Like, I thought that was kind of funny, as opposed to
that was funny.
The dudes just like sliding in and you know, elbow dropping people. It appeared at certain points, but no, overall the girls couldn't get it done either. So then it became sudden death, which meant they put up half the puzzle on the wall. So the guys only had to, in their second attempt, only had to try to figure out half the puzzle or finish off half the puzzle. And at that point, obviously they were able to get it done, and the US team just edges out the UK squad. It was close, very close, and that's got to be another devastating loss for the UK because, you know, what's their losing streak at now? They're turning into the Washington Generals, no?
Yeah, you know, the only time they've won is because Johnny Bananas and Laurel threw a competition.
Yes.
Like, they don't even have a moral victory where they're able to say, like, oh, yeah, well, at least we beat them that one time. Because they all know that the one time they won, it's because the Americans purposely lost. Which, again, I was thinking about that as I watched this. What a bizarre left turn that was, where Johnny Bananas and his little squad thought that the best move was to purposely lose.
Yeah, I don't know. It was an odd one. It was an odd one that makes me think about, you know, was it one of those things? Because now this is forever in my mind. Last season when they had the reunion show and Zach was talking about how he could have been on the show for a couple weeks, but eventually knew that he wouldn't be able to stay for a long time, and so he basically threw the elimination to Wes. That
Yeah.
will forever stick in my mind because I'm always going to think, like, when someone does something crazy early on, is that their motivation as well? Like, well, I'll come over for 2 weeks and that's about it, but I can't really commit more time. So I'm just going to try to cause as much chaos as I can while I'm there, and then I'm out. I don't know. We'll never know,
strange.
really. We'll never know.
So Theo actually nails it when describing the Brits. Theo says, "We're not a team, we're a joke." That's the best way to describe it. Josh is named the speaker for the Americans, and he forms a tribunal with Ninja and Leroy. A pretty solid group, I think.
So they didn't show this, but I was wondering why they picked Josh, and I wondered if it was because it was a guy's elimination, and so they wanted to avoid even the thought of someone trying to put Josh in.
Yeah, maybe, because he would flip out.
And I don't know, but Josh, would you say Josh is probably the weakest dude competitor on the U.S. team?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right? So, and maybe that was it. I don't know, but that's just my assumption because I was just kind of like, oh, that's a weird one. Okay, Josh. And it was an eclectic mix, dare I say, of the tribunal, right? Because Ninja and Leroy just seemed like an odd pairing with Josh. I don't know.
Well, I also think that, I don't think Josh was necessarily the one that chose his tribunal members, because there's definitely like a representative from each side of the house.
From each delegation, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And like Leroy is pretty consistently neutral.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair. So where do you want to go after? You want to get into this Kam and Leroy thing, or do you want to save that?
Yeah.
Kam and Leroy, yeah. They're at it again, and we skipped over the earlier scene, but basically to catch you up, they haven't been talking. And slowly but surely, it starts off with a hello, and then it's getting back closer to old times, right? And Kam and Leroy, I think we like both of those. Like, we are fans of both of these people, right? Like, we both enjoy them on the show, think they're really good characters, they're cool peoples. And so them together makes sense, right? Like, it's a cool thing. Like, you'd root for that. And I thought that was really cool when CT kind of broke down their whole relationship before, in terms of Kam wanted to give more than Leroy was willing to give early on, and that was kind of their issue. And if Leroy would just give more, then they would have been together and it would work. And I thought that was really cool, but I was also kind of surprised to see how far it progressed that they showed us in this episode, right? Because it went from 0 to 100 in terms of just, oh, we don't talk, to, hey, why are you talking to me again, to, okay, now we're back, and now we're playing with fire again, as Kam said.
Well, and they even kissed on camera.
Yeah. And I thought it was funny. Kam says, you know what it's like playing with fire. You play with fire and you might get burned. So hopefully this is a good kind of fire. And I was like, is there a good kind of fire to play with?
That's exactly what I wondered. Like, Kam, first of all, Kam.
Like, I don't think you understand how that saying goes, right? Or what it means.
I don't think that means what you think it means, Kam. And, like, I will say, I always, when these two first, like, started to hit it off, I really liked them together. Mm-hmm. And I liked how they went about their business at first, because remember the first season where they met and were, like, hitting it off?
Yeah.
They kept it low-key, and it was very, like, it seemed like a very genuine connection. I did not think it was a showmance because they did not play for the cameras. I don't think it's a showmance at all, but it's also, like, I'm hoping that they can figure their shit out, but I don't think they have. Like, we haven't seen any evidence that they've, like, I mean, the fact that Kam's just like, well, I hope this time it's for real, like, that's probably not enough, Kam. And I loved CT just, like, doing a drive-by, like, couples counseling.
This drive-by, like, Dr. what's my guy's name?
Dr.
Not
Phil?
Dr. Phil. There's the other guy with Dr. Drew.
Yeah.
Anyways,
but
yeah,
it's also notable that it's coming from CT, who had the ultimate will they or won't they relationship with DM, right?
Yep.
So
Good
like
point.
CT can speak with authority on like, hey, Leroy, get your shit together. Hey, Cam, get your shit together, because it took CT and DM quite a while to figure things out, and unfortunately, time had sort of run out on them.
Yeah.
But I loved that moment of CT just being like, hey, here's your problems, and like laid it out, and I like that neither of them disagreed.
Very true. Very true. Moving on, though, we get to the tribunal, or the nominations, I guess you could call it. And this one goes pretty straightforward. Like, it's pretty quick that everyone just picks Idris. And Idris ends up going in. He doesn't really have much to say, but he's also kind of looks like he's just simmering mad. And
yeah,
I mean, at this point, we know that it's a numbers game, right? And, oh, sorry, let me rephrase that. Because this week it kind of switched. Whereas for the past however many weeks, it's been the fact that it's a numbers game. And so, Theo, you're going in. And then this time around, it's like, no, we need to get rid of the weakest person. We're finally getting rid of the weakest person. Mm-hmm. And in goes Idris. He says he thinks he can take anyone. But this is where the strategy of this season really comes into play, right? Because you're figuring out Ninja wants Theo to go in, Josh wants Joss to go in, and Leroy, who's been playing the middle, he's going to have to expose himself and kind of show what side he's on. But it's all laid out at that point, which we'll get to in a bit. Yeah?
Yeah. I want to circle back to the Idris thing. It's interesting to me. It's such a funny but obvious strategy that the British like tribunals where they like nominate their team member always go the same way. Where CT is like, well, we fucking lost again. Who wants to throw out a name? And it's always Rogan says a name first, and then
I was
Josh
gonna say that.
Basically repeats it. And it's funny to me that no one has thought on the British team to disrupt that. I guess Bear would from time to time.
Yeah.
But like that like 1-2 punch of two people saying we're going to be voting this way, it just sets the tone so fast. And like
totally.
Good strategy by Joss and Rogan, but I don't understand why, like if you're Idris and you're going into that tribunal, you got to be looking around and being like, maybe I should start the conversation, if you know what I mean.
Yes. No, totally true. But yeah, I mean, Idris ends up, you're in, my dude, you're in. So that's their decision anyways. But we get back to the house, and I don't know if Theo realizes what's going on, or that he's on the chopping block and he just doesn't care, or if, as he says in his confessional, he will take any chance he can to just dig at Paulie because he enjoys it. But half the crew is chilling by the pool, and the other half is like doing a shadow boxing workout. And
naturally,
of course, right? And Theo starts just trolling Paulie. And I'll start defending Paulie here by saying Paulie's just minding his own business working out, right? Like, he's not doing anything. So I'll defend Paulie here in the beginning. But they start going at each other, and Theo's like talking trash, like saying that Paulie's a fake tough guy. And then Paulie comes over, and he starts bringing up the fact, he's saying, dude, like, if I saw you in the street, I'd buckle those knees, which is a funny thing to say. And to be honest, I started writing down, you know, who do I actually think would win in a fight between Paulie and Theo? But then I realized I don't really care. Right? Like, I actually wrote that down, and I'm like, wait a second, like, I don't really care who would actually win in a fight between these dudes. So, because you also know that would never happen. It's such a dumb situation, because if you were going to fight, you would just fight right now. That's why I don't really care. And also, it's just, you know where this is going. This is going to another hold me back type fight, right? Yep. So let's just get on to those proceedings. That's my thought process here. So Theo brings up that Paulie's just all talk because he had a chance to go in against Kyle in an elimination last year and he backed down. Or sorry, Earmuffs kids, he says, you pussied out. Which is pretty true. Facts. And he says, and Theo says, and that's the guy that fucked your girl. And you back down. Which is facts, right? Like, that's liar tell, as my boys will say, right? Liar tell. So Paulie's response to this is, well, I took his girl, and let's be honest, where's your girl? I'll take her too. Which I'm like, okay, that's a very... Go ahead.
I'm going to pause you there just because Paulie did not take Kyle's girl. Right? Like, I mean, not to get all Ross and Rachel, but they were on a break. Right? Like, the whole, like, lead up to that season was that Kyle had just, like, ghosted on Cara.
Yes.
And was fucking other people in the house.
Yes.
Including Ashley, like, among others, and Faith.
Yes.
So, like, it's not like Paulie wheeled in and, like, stole her from Kyle.
No.
Like, she was ripe for the taking. And also, Paulie, like, you probably blur lines too much when you're in relationships. Maybe you should not do that.
I also just think that this whole, like, I'll take your girl too is a very millennial... Like, yeah. And I'm using the, and I'm not, this is not me being old man, ha ha ha, screaming at the cloud. But I always reference this. I remember having the conversation recently with my boys asking about, like, music and how if you listen to so much popular music, and I'm talking like hip hop and R&B, so much of it is about, like, taking another dude's girl. And I don't really understand it. Like, I had a full-on conversation with my boys. Like, when was the moment in time where it changed that, like, your goal as a dude was to steal another guy's girl, right? Like, I mean, is it Trey Songz, Mr. Steal Your Girl? Like, I don't even understand why that's, like, such a thing to brag about. I don't get it. And I assume it's generational because I feel like the music that I came up on didn't really brag about stealing other people's girl. You might brag about getting a lot of girls. We didn't brag about trying to take someone else's girl. And, yeah, I don't know when that change in direction happened. So I assume that it's generational. Because, again, I don't recall hearing that in music coming up. And I also don't recall that being a thing, like, amongst my friends or in high school or whatever. So I don't know. Maybe our listeners can help us out with that.
Yeah, I'm with you. And then we got to circle back to
there's a lot more that goes on here.
Because, so, I mean, I want to say that they're going chest to chest because you can't really call it face to face between Theo and Paulie.
Well, hold on, though. Paulie, I think, knows that he can't go chest to chest, and so that's why Theo's sitting down, and Paulie comes over and he's bent over in his face because he knows, like, that's kind of the only time he's going to have that upper hand, right? Like, he's right in Theo's face, bending over while Theo's still seated, which is very important, right? Because quickly that dynamic changes, but before it does, they're already, like, rubbing noses with each other. I think there was, like, a chin exchange, like, rubbing together.
The phrase you're looking for is Eskimo kissing.
Okay.
I just, apropos of nothing, I have to point out, did you know that Charles Manson was 5'2", and whenever he walked into a room, he would stand on a chair so that he'd be the tallest person in the room? I just have to throw that out there.
I did not know that. I did not know that. That is a nice random fact by you, John. I did not know.
Well,
that
I think it's a nice segue for that because I'm not gonna lie. When Paulie was leaning over Theo to Eskimo kiss him, I'm like, interesting move here.
It's super odd. But then Theo stands up, and then we see, you know, the complete shift in dynamic to Paulie being, like, basically at Theo's peck. Right?
Yeah.
And it was so funny because security comes out, and I'm thinking, like, these guys aren't really gonna fight. This is so lame. And Paulie basically kisses him, right?
Yeah,
and
he
Georgia's
goes full Brad Marchand.
Yes, and George is just giggling, yelling, kiss again, kiss again. And Ashley has one of the best, she had one of the best confessionals of this episode where she says, I don't think it's right for security to come out and break up true love.
And then she says, what am I doing in a house with these people? I shouldn't have quit college. Back to back. Those, I'll say it right now, those are my lines of the episode. I was dying laughing, and Ashley was dying laughing. Like, she could barely get the words out. She was laughing so hard.
It was pretty
deserved. Well deserved.
Another thing I'd like to point out, when this huge fight is going along for a long, long time, one thing I peeped in the background was your man's Josh cuddled up with Georgia.
Yeah.
Am I the only one that noticed that, or no?
I noticed that his hand is all up on her leg.
Yeah.
He's right in there.
And I don't know. And hey, we're going to do a little reality TV deep dive here. So I'm not confirming or denying. I'm just saying it's a thing that happens on reality television where people will be sitting and cuddling and they'll have a blanket so that they're covering up excitement, I'll say.
Oh.
I'm not confirming or denying because I don't know if that's the case in this situation. But I'm just saying I could see a scenario in which Josh might be very excited that, things, namely Georgia, might be turning in his direction. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. I kind of hope not, because I cannot stand Josh.
Yeah, I mean, he's a character. He's definitely a character.
That is so much nicer than how I feel.
Well, the other part of this is that Tori and Jordan are just sitting down and watching this whole thing go down, not really getting involved, but kind of just like, okay, Paulie is really feeling himself, right? Like, they have a look at disgust, but also just like, Paulie is really feeling himself right now. Like, him and Cara are running this house, and they don't like that fact, right? Like, this is not conducive to their game, right? And Jordan, I found this weird because I don't really understand it, but Jordan goes to Zach, and he's talking about how weird the whole setup is in the house right now. Paulie's running everything, and how do they flip it? And he proposes maybe he goes in against Idris, and then he then goes to the UK side and then teaches them how to win, but also gets them to get out Paulie and Cara.
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of this plan?
I like how Zach put it. That's pretty risky, because, yeah, it fucking is. Like, it's like... So, first of all, Jordan's saying, like, somehow I have to convince people to put me in, like the American Tribunal to put me in.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have to beat Idris, which, like, I know they described Idris as a layup, but, like, everyone has a puncher's chance. You know what I mean?
Of course.
Like,
of course.
You don't know how it's going to go. Then he somehow thinks he's going to, like, he's, like, the solution to the UK's problems, and that he can somehow get them all on the same page and winning.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's like 5 ifs in a row. Like, that is
there's a lot there for sure.
Bad plan. I also have to point out, in the transition scene from, like, the fight to Jordan approaching Zach with this idiotic plan, did they sample the theme song from the X-Men animated series? Because it sounded a lot like it.
I have no idea.
Listeners, if you have the time, go back. Like, it sure sounded... It wasn't quite... Like, I'm not saying it was the theme from the X-Men animated series, but, like, they definitely were, like, riffing on it. You know, it's like a jazz fusion version of the X-Men animated series theme. Just saying.
So, I feel like I definitely would have watched that show.
Yeah, you would have.
You
were a child once.
100% I would have watched that show. But off the top of my head, I can't remember what the theme song would have been. I'd have to look it up.
Sheldon.
I'm sorry. I'm an old man, John. I'm an old man.
It's a banger. You'll like it.
I'll check it out. I'll peep it after the game. I'll put it onto one of my iTunes playlists or something. I'll check it out for sure. I'll check it out.
It was my cell phone ring for a while. It's too intense though.
Amazing. We get a Team US meeting, which nothing really comes out of it, right?
No.
Nothing really happens. So we end up at the actual proving ground.
I do have to say just one thing about the American discussion. First of all, I thought it was a good play by Leroy because he was the one who insisted on this, and he's been consistent in his message to the Americans. We all gotta be on the same page. So I like him sort of being consistent. Mm-hmm. And at one point, Leroy says that he thinks Idris can take out anyone on the British team, and Zach goes fully Jim Halpert from The Office and looks at the camera and mugs.
Yeah,
it goes fully that, or the Chris Pratt on Parks and Rec, looking at the camera and being like, "What?"
Yeah.
Anyway, I thought that was hilarious. Zach had a good episode in his way.
Yeah, no, it was a pretty funny moment for sure, and the other part of this, them not being able to make a decision, or what Leroy is doing, is Leroy is delaying as much as possible him having to show his cards. That's really what he's doing, right? He knows what side he wants to be on or what side he should be on, but the longer that he tries to make this a group discussion, the longer it is that he doesn't have to say or pick a side in the house. And that's really what Leroy's trying to do here, right? I don't think it's strategy. Don't get me wrong. There is part of it that he's trying to keep the team together. But I also think that there's another huge part of this that's he's not wanting to have to pick a side. But yeah, we get to the proving ground, and the proving ground in the beginning anyways turns into just a fight in which Josh is calling out Pauly for controlling the vote. And as soon as Ninja says that she's picking Theo, Josh starts at it, right? And he starts, just trolling, and Pauly's just laughing, trying to calm it down. And the thing is, I feel like Pauly and Cara know what they're doing. They're almost at, not fully, almost at the Johnny Bananas level in terms of them producing the show. And what I mean by that is them knowing what's going to be in, what's not going to be. Even if we went back to the Pauly and Theo fight, right? There's a moment where Pauly gets into Theo's face and it looks so comical, and you can see Cara in the bottom corner of the screen kind of look, and she breaks and starts laughing, right? There's a smirk because it looks so ridiculous. And to me, that's okay, well, if she really thought there was going to be a fight, she'd probably be trying to break it up. But she knows that Pauly's just trying to make good TV, so she's letting it slide, right? Mm-hmm. And so think back even to, remember when they were at the restaurant the one time, and she tried to run out as if she was crying, but then the camera caught her, and then she smirked into the camera, right? Yep. So now fast forward to this moment here, and Josh is just going off, and Pauly and Cara are just there smirking. Just what are you talking about, Josh? We have no idea what you're talking about. But they know what Josh is talking about, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Josh is right, but also, Joss and Theo are both equally good choices to put in. I understand that what's really going on is that Cara and Pauly are allied with Joss, so they're trying to protect him. Mm-hmm. But also, from the American perspective, and Josh is arguing that he is just trying to play for the American side. If you're just playing from the American side, then Joss and Theo are equally good choices.
But I disagree, though. Because remember we were talking about how, because I thought about this for a while, right? Because I was wait a second. I'm like, is Josh, like, why is Josh so mad? And I couldn't figure it out. And also, you know, I had to stop and see if I was giving myself the benefit of the doubt or if I'm just like hating on Josh because he's very easy to hate on, right? Like, is he just making a spectacle because that's what Josh does? But when you really break it down and think about this, right? Josh is right. You should be trying to get out Rogan or Joss. And really, he wanted to throw in Rogan, which I don't know how that slid off to just being Joss. But really, that should be the move. Because if you think about it, you're cutting down, like, you're breaking down the other team. But also, you want Idris to come back. Yep. Idris has a better chance of winning against Rogan than he does against Theo. Like, we know Theo is good at challenges. We know Theo doesn't crumble under pressure in eliminations because we've seen him in eliminations already. So the move should be, like, I agree with Josh. The move should have been Rogan, but barring that, it should have been Joss, just because I think if all fails and you're choosing just Joss and Theo, you choose Joss because you're knocking down a number of an ally on the other team. Right, because you have the team of the UK, but then you also have this other built-in block of the UK, which is the Joss and Rogan alliance, right? You try to take out one of them as opposed to Theo. Theo's already like a wounded duck on that side anyways. So I can't believe I'm saying this, and I couldn't believe it as I was typing it out, but I actually agree with Josh here. Like, Josh and I guess Jordan as well, right? I agree with them, Hundo P. You're just following whatever Paulie says and not even thinking it through in terms of how much it actually hurts your team. And not even that it doesn't hurt the team, but it's just solely benefiting Paulie.
Yeah. It is. Like, I totally see Josh's logic. I also just, like, I kind of think he has to suck it up.
Yeah, but I mean, Josh does very few things quietly.
That's fair. That's fair. Also, it was so funny and immature in their argument as Josh and Paulie were arguing. First of all, they just kept calling each other bitch. Like, you're a bitch. No, you're a bitch. Which goes to show their maturity level.
Yep.
But also, at one point, Paulie goes, "Why don't you cry, you little big brother bitch?" Paulie, first of all, you're a very emotional person. And what show did you get your start on again? And this is not the first time that Paulie has, like, lorded it over Josh, that Josh is, like, from Big Brother and doesn't know what he's doing. Because, again, Paulie, like, you have had one more season on Big Brother, on the challenge than Josh. Like, you don't really have a leg to stand on there.
Yeah, it's super weird, but also it's Paulie, right? The actual elimination was kind of uneventful, no? And I was expecting it to be closer. I actually thought Idris had a chance against Theo. Like, I thought Idris might win against Theo, to be honest. But the actual challenge I thought was cool. You're on either side. You're on, like, these stairs, and you got to swing on a rope to break through a wall. And then once you break through the wall on the other side, there's a puzzle for you to put together. And the reason why I love these challenges is because the puzzle becomes the equalizer, right? Whoever's the biggest, baddest, strongest, you might be first one through the wall, but it doesn't matter because how quickly can you put together the puzzle? And Theo was bigger and stronger, so he got through the wall faster than Idris. And then he just put together the puzzle, like, way faster than Idris. Like, it didn't even look close. But I felt bad at the same time. And tell me if you agree or not, but I felt bad for Idris because he had, like, 20 people yelling at him different things and what pieces to grab, which made no sense to me.
And giving him bad advice, too. Like, they kept saying to him, like, get the L-shaped piece. But there was clearly 2 L-shaped pieces.
Yeah.
Like, and they were getting so frustrated with him.
But also, they're so much further away. Like, you can't even get a good grasp of what the pieces are from as far away as the people are compared to how close Idris is. Do you know what I mean? Like, that part made no sense to me. Like, why are you listening to people who are way further away than you when you can see the actual sizes of the pieces? I don't know. It seemed weird.
Yeah.
But Idris, quick work, he's gone, and Theo wins again. Theo stays on the UK team. Is that a mistake?
I mean, I don't see what good it would be to go to the American team at this stage. I know last week we were talking about how he should be on the American team, but that was sort of contingent on him and Georgia going, right? Because they're in an alliance, and so if they both go, then it swings votes, right? Then
so
suddenly
here's
you're
the thing,
teaming
though.
with Josh and.
Here's the thing, though. If he went last week and the U.S. team wins, so the UK team votes in who? Idris still, right?
Yep.
And then the U.S. team, are they just going to throw, wouldn't they try to just then take out someone else on the UK team? Or would they automatically just say, well, we're throwing in Theo? Do you know what I mean? Like, I think the move might have, you got to test it out. And if I was him, I would have went to the other team and been like, hey, I joined your squad. Even if you had to lie and be like, hey, Paulie, I'm a number for you, even though you're lying or you make it up or whatever, you say whatever you can just to avoid another elimination. Because all you did was just end up right back in the same place again.
You know what? You've convinced me, because part of Theo's problem right now is both the British and the Americans are putting him up for nomination.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, when the Brits lose, they might nominate him. And even if they don't nominate him, then the Americans might nominate him. But if he switches to the American side, well, then at least the British can't nominate them when they inevitably lose again.
Exactly. You improve your odds at least. You've improved your odds at least, right?
And also, he could then be in an alliance with Josh. Like, there's more allies available to him on the American side.
And maybe on the American side, you go to them and say, hey, I want to be the speaker.
Yeah.
Right? And then, or even just in the tribunal, I want to know what it's like to sit on the other side, and they make a joke about it. And you avoid 1 week of elimination. Right? But anyways, did you have the same moment that I did where this elimination ended and I was like, whoa, there's still a lot of time left, so I guess another fight's about to go down?
Well, I'd seen a preview of this upcoming fight on Instagram, so I'm like, we haven't seen this fight yet. That's gonna come.
Okay. I didn't see that part on Instagram, but it did go down. And it starts off with Jordan making a silly joke about Cara. That was like a harmless, like, whatever. But
it's pretty standard issue locker room, like, chirping.
Yeah.
You know what? Like, that is something that, like, you and I have both played on sports teams. That's sort of a standard issue. Like, it's a little annoying, but it's pretty standard issue. It starts with Jordan chirping Kam about her cardio or lack thereof.
Yeah.
And he then, like, applies the same joke to Cara. Basically, it's after the elimination. Some of the Americans are going to go work out. And Leroy's asking Kam if she wants to go work out. And she's like, I'm thinking about it. And Jordan's like, well, you know, like, you get just as much cardio thinking about doing it as you do actually doing it. And then he goes, just ask Cara, which is like I said, like, that's pretty. I know the president of the United States used the term locker room talk, but, like, that is actual locker room talk. Like, that's just sort of how you shit talk your teammates. Like, I didn't find it that offensive, although I can see why, from Cara's perspective, it was probably the latest in a long line of, like, chirps, digs, and carves. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just on, like, the scale of chirps, like, that's a pretty low level chirp, and Cara could have just like laughed it off and like, yeah, good one, Jordan, shut up, and let it be. But instead she escalates it, right, and like turns it into this whole thing about, why are you always poking at me, Jordan, blah blah blah, which then, you know, just gets Jordan going, and then now he's going back at her, and it turns into this whole thing where Jordan starts talking about how, you know, you guys just worship Turbo so much, and Turbo won one challenge, or he won one elimination, or one final, sorry. And, you know, you guys think that he's untouchable, but really, you know, he won because I wasn't there. which I thought was funny. But also Jordan starts talking about the fact that in the challenge they had earlier in that day, that Turbo was gassed out and said that he was tired. And we saw that video. We saw, like, there's facts there. And Turbo said he was done and he was tired and he was, and that's it. But Ashley runs to go tell Turbo. And then Turbo comes in and, yeah, it explodes into this huge fight between Jordan and Turbo. And it's weird because Jordan is an instigator. Jordan definitely, you know, falling in the lines of Jesus and Mero. Jordan definitely did not keep that same energy when Turbo was there. He didn't completely back down, but his energy wasn't nearly as high, right? When he was talking to Turbo in person, as opposed to when Turbo wasn't there. Am I right there?
Yeah. He started like moving the conversation sideways.
Yeah.
Because like
yeah.
Turbo immediately said like, why are you calling me the weakest man on our team? And instead, he goes, I didn't call you like the weakest man. Like he starts like confusing it. And I think honestly, manipulating Turbo and Turbo's less than like, obviously English is not Turbo's first language. And I felt like Jordan was immediately getting into semantics and like confusing the issue.
Yeah, because Turbo's
like,
just like
isn't very fair.
And the other thing too, when English is not your first language, you make everything very literal.
Yeah.
Right, and so Turbo, like the difference in Turbo's mind between you're the weakest on the team and you're a weak player, right? Like although there is literally a difference between that doesn't register to Turbo, right? And Jordan's also not really full on explaining that either. But
no.
At the end of the day, Turbo's super upset because he feels that Jordan again is disrespecting his honor, disrespecting him. I like the fact that Tori's getting really mad because she's like, Kara, like you guys are turning this into this huge thing and it's not that big of a deal. And you guys are trying to pin Jordan against Turbo. And this part I agree with. Because Paulie is not going at Jordan.
Nope.
Right? They're not making it that. I mean, Paulie at one point did try to say, oh, you're jabbing my girl and that's disrespect to me. But he doesn't have that same energy really either. But he's okay with Turbo having that same energy. And I thought that was a weird part of this whole thing because, you know, Kara blew this up into nothing. Turbo comes in and he's super mad, despite the fact Nani tries to calm him down. And at this point, I'm on Jordan's side. I thought about that for a second, but at this point, I'm on Jordan's side. And then Jordan just keeps escalating it and being the dick that Jordan can be at times. And that's when I'm like, okay, now I don't really know how much I'm on Jordan's side. But if I had to pick throughout the whole thing, if I have to pick, I'm on Team Jordan in this situation. What about you?
I wouldn't say I'm on Team Jordan, but I also have a very hard time sympathizing with Turbo.
Yeah.
Because the things he gets upset about are just, in my mind, not worth getting upset about. And like the ultimate example is the thing that we close on, which is they've sort of separated, but then they're like still jawing at each other with Turbo in the pool and Jordan sort of like poolside. And this is like, I gather, like half an hour to an hour after the initial argument. And Jordan starts to copy Turbo's walk.
Yeah.
And Turbo fucking loses it, screaming, "You cannot copy my walk, don't copy my walk." First of all, if you have a walk that's so distinctive that you know that like it can be imitated that effectively, like that's on you. And also, like, you just, like, I know that a big part of this is cultural, but you just, like, you can't let that upset you. And, like, I know Turbo really wants the show to just be about competition, but that's like, watch a season of the challenge before you go on it. Like, that's not how people act. People are going to find what upsets you, and they're going to try to upset you. Like, it's as much psychological as it is physical.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that I'm Team Jordan. I wouldn't say that I'm Team Pauly, but I'm not Team Turbo. Like, I can't sign off on him being like homicidally angry because someone pretended to walk like him.
Yeah, I will say that's one of the most, like, honestly, that was one of the most ridiculous things I've seen someone get that angry about in challenge history. Like, he's screaming and being held back by like 3 security guards, and he's screaming, "You cannot copy my walk." And I keep trying to remind myself that Turbo is all about honor. And once you disrespect him, that's what really sets him off. More than how you're actually disrespecting him, it matters more that you're disrespecting him. So I understand that on some level. But on the other side, that's completely ridiculous. Like, who cares? It's so dumb. The other part is, what do you make of Turbo's telling Jordan, "Hey, me and you, let's just go in the elimination and we'll go against each other"? What do you think of that move by Turbo, just calling out Jordan? And Jordan saying, actually, "No, I'm not putting myself in elimination," even though we've actually seen Jordan do that before.
Well, I think Jordan has learned from his mistakes. But
I hope so.
Again, this makes it hard for me to sympathize or like sign off on Turbo's behavior. How is it that you are so wound up about this that you will not just possibly sacrifice your game, but the American team's game? Like, are you there to win money, or are you there to maintain your honor?
Yeah, like, you guys can have a race after the show.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You can have a mock UFC match after the show.
Yeah, he is too caught up in his own sense of self and ego that, like, it's, I don't know, it's so hard for me to get behind or sympathize with. And I haven't been on social media really since this episode aired, but like, I know Turbo has his fans, and like, I do respect Turbo. It's just he's bringing real life values, his real life values, to an arena where they don't apply.
Yeah.
Like, for better or for worse, they don't apply. So
totally agree.
It's just hard for me to, and like, I sort of excused it because like the first season, okay, maybe he hasn't seen it, but he's now gone through a full season of the challenge. Like, he should know better. Like, there's a certain amount of naivete that he's bringing too. Yeah, I do want to give a shout out to Nani, though, who rightly sees what's going on and tries to explain it to Turbo, where she's like, "Hey, what's going on is Ashley and Kara stirred this up so that you and Jordan, like, either way they win because one of you's going home."
Yeah. Yep.
Right? And like, you can't let them get you like this.
And they did. Got him.
They did.
Sorry.
What was your line of the episode?
My line of the episode was the Killa Kam and Leroy conversation when CT's like, right after CT gives his like Dr. Phil speech, and he's like, "You know what you guys need to do?" And Leroy's like, "Is have sex." And he starts like mock having sex on the bed, and Cam says, "Oh no," he's like, "You guys need to have sex." And Leroy said, "That's her fondest memory." And Cam's like, "No, Leroy, that 10 seconds was not my fondest memory." And I was like, oh, cheap joke, but funny joke, well played. I really just chose it because I like their dynamic. I like them like joking around with each other. Fair enough. And even like, there's another part, I think it was in the second part, where Cam says to him, she's like, "Why are you being so nice to me all of a sudden right now?" And he's like, "Because I'm horny." And she hits him. She's like, "Shut up, Leroy." And like, I think he's being serious, but
yeah,
I just like their dynamic.
I already said that my line of the episode was, I don't think it's right for security to break up true love. But there's a couple other ones. Honorable mentions. When Idris is down on the proving ground and they see it's a puzzle game, CT says, Idris is still trying to figure out how he's getting into elimination. There's no way he can solve a puzzle. And Zach says, when Turbo's freaking out about Jordan copying his walk, Zach says, there's a look in Turbo's eyes I've only seen on the Discovery Channel. Those are good. Both honorable mention. Who killed it for you this week?
Do you know what? I'm going to pick Theo just because back-to-back eliminations, I'm going to respect that. I'm going to respect the fact that you went into back-to-back eliminations and won. And what's that? His third elimination of the season?
Yep, so, he's 3-0.
I mean, you got to respect it. It's as simple as that. He doesn't have the numbers on his side, and this whole season's been about numbers. And his team isn't strong, which is why he's probably been in the elimination 3 times as well. And he's taken down all challengers. So I got nothing but respect for Theo at this point. I can't really say that I'm a Theo fan. I can't really say that I'm a fan of how Theo handles his business within the house. I can't say that I'm a fan of how cocky he is. But at the end of the day, results matter. And like sports, which is a theme here that we have on this podcast, like sports, what matters the most is what you do in winning time. And hey, in elimination time, Theo won. So, Theo, you killed it this week.
I think I'm going to go once again back-to-back weeks with Ashley, because I think she's playing the game really well, and she continues to manipulate people. She continues to be on the winning side. No one's saying her name when it comes to eliminations. She somehow is allied with Polly and Cara and just making it work. So yeah, shout out to Ashley. I think she's playing a great game, and I love that Ashley is a different sort of competitor. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yep. She finds a different way to contribute to her team. Yes.
We do have a small piece of news. I didn't even forewarn you that I was going to bring this up. But do you remember Ammo from Challenge Dirty 30?
Yes.
Ammo actually reached out to me to let me know that they have begun the transitioning process. They're taking hormones, although they prefer the phrase transformation rather than transition. But also, they have a music video out now called Macy, where, hold on a second, I'm actually just going to read it verbatim, because Ammo sent me a message. And while I look that up, I should say, Ammo, when they were on the challenge, spelled their name AMMO, but now it's AMO. They changed the spelling because AMMO was a biblical reference. So here's what Ammo said to me. I made a music video for my most recent song, Macy. In it, I play a non-binary, polyamorous, pansexual Jesus who attends their first Pride with their lovers. I grew up in an intensely Mormon home where I was told Jesus would not love me after I came out. I made this video to create a fantasy where Jesus not only loved queer people, but was one themselves. I am reaching out to my friends that are journalists and asking for help to share this video. So, folks, listeners, if you want to check it out, as I said, the song's called Macy. It's an update from our friend Ammo, who is a former challenge competitor. And I wish them the best of luck in this new chapter of their lives. So I just wanted to spread that good word.
Cool. Sounds good.
Where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter at Shell Alexander and on Instagram at Sheldon Alexander. And again, shouts to all the people that follow and like the challenge and enjoy our interactions online on social media. Always fun going back and forth with our listeners for sure. And for the people that are new to the pod, don't forget to like and subscribe and rate us on iTunes and SoundCloud and YouTube and all that other fun stuff. And yeah, enjoy. The other thing is, obviously, it's basketball season, so a lot of basketball tweets and content coming your way if you do follow me on social media. So enjoy, and if not, just know that, hey, the challenge stuff is still there too. So we're all here for the good times.
And you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at jchidleyhill. Likewise, I'm going to the Raptors practice this morning. So should you follow me on Twitter, there'll probably be Raptors content from both of us. Until next week.
Because we are the world champions.
We are the world championships. The undefeated Toronto Raptors this season. Also worth noting. Until next week, this was You Killed It.
You killed it.